So, welcome to the Dreamers Podcast. I'm Anne-Lyse Wealth, and today I'm here with a special guest, Cory Young. Cory is an SEO expert. He has over 15 years of experience leading digital marketing and SEO strategies at Fortune 500 companies. He is the founder of BCC Interactive, and after basically starting a side hustle, which is BCC Interactive, Cory was able to scale it to multiple six figures and decided to turn his side hustle into his full-time job. Cory has helped his clients drive over $100 million in revenue from organic search. I'm excited to find out more from Cory about why we should care about SEO and how we can leverage SEO to increase traffic to our website and eventually, for those who have products or businesses, increase sales. Cory, welcome to the Dreamers Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Cory, can you tell the Dreamers a little bit about you and what you do?
I am, as you mentioned, the founder of BCC Interactive. What we really specialize in is helping small to mid-sized businesses really turn their websites into revenue-generating machines so that they can reach their ideal clients and basically make money on autopilot while they sleep without having to actively engage with their target audience, allowing their websites to not only generate that traffic, but do the speaking for them.
Love that. And I know most people who are listening have heard about SEO, and most people are probably confused about what exactly SEO is. And so I'm sure we'll get into that. But before we start digging into SEO, I would love to hear about your money story. Tell me about an early money memory and how it has impacted your life.
It probably starts all the way back in college for me. My initial money story is not a positive, but it's getting caught up in, hey, here's a credit card deal, X, Y, and Z. Despite my parents really emphasizing that that wasn't a good idea, I went ahead and did it anyway. And then as a result, once I got out with a mountain full of debt, I had to start figuring out ways other than my main job to come up with finances, which started my run of side hustles. So it started out with doing mystery shops and focus groups, and then ultimately morphed into BCC Interactive today, with that side hustle becoming my main hustle.
Very interesting. Most people actually don't necessarily have a positive early money memory. It is very common, especially in college, credit card. I know they've made some effort in terms of how much credit cards are pushed on college students because we get this slice of pizza and sign up. There's still some progress that needs to be made. How much credit card debt did you pile up?
It wasn't a crazy amount, probably $5,000 or $6,000, which is a lot when you're only making like 30 grand coming out of school. That was definitely a hurdle early on that I had to climb, but I think it put me on the right path with not necessarily being satisfied with what was put in front of me as far as income. I was always looking for a means to add more.
What were you doing prior to starting BCC Interactive?
Prior to starting BCC, I was working at Comcast as a manager on the SEO team. And prior to that, I was working at an agency, which was eventually acquired by eBay. I had a little bit of digital marketing expertise, but Comcast is really where I honed my skills and got a lot of exposure to the different facets of digital marketing, not just solely SEO.
It's very interesting that you're mentioning that, right? Because a lot of times when we think about a side hustle, we don't necessarily think about how to leverage the skills that you're currently using at your job and just make money outside of that. I want to take it back even further, though, because I know that when you graduated from college, you weren't on track to do what you do now. So
yeah, correct. I had several majors in college. One was more in the IT field, and then the other was I wanted to be a journalist. Came out of college in 06, 07, and pretty much smack dab in the middle of the recession. Newspapers had not figured out how to monetize themselves yet. I still don't know if they have, but it was not going to be a lucrative career path for me. So I tried several different side hustles, not getting a career straight out of college. I was doing telemarketing, was selling Cutco knives, just trying all sorts of different side hustles to make a buck. And Obama hadn't signed the health insurance policy yet, so I was not on my parents' insurance plan, which was a giant issue for people coming out of college prior to 2012. Yeah, there were a mountain of things that I was really battling, but I had zero intention of doing marketing. Honestly, I didn't have a marketing degree, didn't really even know what it was, to be honest, let alone digital marketing. I just knew that I was good with computers. And, I assumed the track was either IT or nothing.
I like that too, because a lot of times we think, all right, I do want to get into that field, but let me make sure I go back to school and get another degree into more student debt so that I can get into that career. So how are you able to get into marketing?
It was definitely right place, right time in terms of I had an internship my senior year in college as I was headed down the communications path, whether it be a journalist for a company or for an actual newspaper. I was running a company's intranet and their internal communications website, which gave me free rein in understanding how websites work. And then after I graduated and was looking for a job for 6 months or so, they came back to me and asked, they had a position on the digital marketing team, basically, and asked if I would be interested based off of them knowing my ability overall. So I definitely got lucky in terms of right place, right time, and having proven myself beforehand so that they knew I had the capability, even if I didn't have 100% of the background in that particular industry. So it was a little bit of leap of faith on their end, but thankfully they believed in me.
Fast forward several years, you are now at Comcast leading efforts there, and you decide to start your side hustle. First of all, for anyone who's interested, who's considering a side hustling while they have a pretty demanding job, what are some of the tips that you have to be able to do both?
Organization is number one. I learned that later on, but I really hit the ground running, and I was up till 2:00 in the morning on a regular basis trying to just get things situated and responding to people. And then I realized that just taking a step back and being a little bit organized would allow me to be more efficient in how I delivered what I was delivering to my clients. And so it wouldn't interfere with my day job. I could do it all basically post work as long as I kept it within certain guardrails. And then honestly, I would say one of the other things people get hamstrung doing is not thinking outside of the box or dreaming big. I never thought it could be what it was, but I also never hamstrung myself in thinking that Comcast was the be all end all. I kind of let it take me where it was going to take me as it got bigger and bigger. And I started to establish myself in the field. I could have easily said, no, this is too much for me. I'm headed down the corporate path. And I see that in a lot of people who I talk to about entrepreneurship. Honestly, even my mom, I'm like, hey, you've got a bunch of hobbies that you can turn into main hustle and retire. And she's like, yeah, but my job. And I'm like,
it's the security.
Yeah, exactly. And just the security of always having a paycheck is nice for a lot of people, and really divorcing yourself from that security blanket and thinking outside the box, which is a lot easier said than done for people with families. But for me, being the age that I was able to dream big, if you will.
When did you know that it was time to turn your side hustle into your main hustle?
I realized it was time, not only from a financial standpoint, but once I was having conversations with CEOs, CMOs, and so on and so forth, as BCC got bigger. And then I had to switch that off and go become a senior analyst in a department that I didn't necessarily want to be in at my full-time job. So it was not only financial, but I think emotional also. It was just like, I don't really want to deal with the full-time job anymore and the headaches that it brings and answering to several different people on the chain of command, while simultaneously I wasn't necessarily ready to let go of having a pretty solid 6-figure salary, and also 6 figures in a side hustle was a nice combination where I didn't have to think about much. And it just became very clear that with my attention fully focused on it, I would be able to make it something that I really wanted from a culture standpoint, from a freedom standpoint, and then also monetary.
How did you prepare for the full-time transition?
First had a conversation with my wife because obviously it was my dream and my intention, and I really, really wanted to go forward with it. But having that support system is really key, probably more key than I initially thought. She said, I'm confident in you. Worst case, you have a solid resume and can go right back into the work world if need be. But I'm confident that you're going to do this. So I was like, okay, cool. Then I'm also confident. Secondly, it was really sitting down and laying out my finances, identifying where I may have to cut because I was giving up a lot of money from a full-time job that just wasn't coming immediately. Realized that I had to taper off finances a little bit. And then the thing that I think most people can't wrap their head around is in line with that support, you are taking a leap of faith to a degree or a leap of confidence that you're going to, in my case, make up what I was giving away in a full-time job. So there was that. And then the preparation that I had done when I spoke about organization, I am in my personal life, I can definitely thrive within not chaos, but disorganization. I'm adaptable, I'm flexible. From a business standpoint, that adaptability, it can't just be me being able to adjust on the fly. We have to have processes, SOPs, all of the above. I used lucid charts and made SOPs until my eyes were red just to have everything situated for when I made this transition and needed a team that it would be as seamless as possible.
How long have you been a full-time entrepreneur?
It's been a little under a year.
What's the biggest lesson you've learned?
The biggest lesson I've learned is, and this may be unique to my situation, but I've thought that because culture is such a big deal for me in terms of work, I was always the person at Comcast who wanted morale high, coming around, cracking jokes to people, just being stupid, but making sure that we all had fun doing this job that we're sitting here for 8 hours to do. And so I figured, why not work with my friends? This will be easy. And it's not necessarily as easy. So those things that you don't foresee because maybe they were easy as you were an employee or as you were not the leader become a little bit harder. Those conversations become tougher. Decisions you make maybe weigh on you a little bit heavier. That transition from being like fun morale guy to this is now one-to-one correlation with my bank account. It's a different beast.
I'm so glad you're talking about that, right? Because I think especially recently, there's this narrative like, quit your job, just do this, right? And it's like, oh, entrepreneurship it's almost like it's easy. It's not easy. When you actually give it your best shot, you can get more returns. The potential for returns is higher.
Yep.
But there's nothing easy about this.
I would agree.
Talk to me about SEO though, because I'm sure the dreamers are listening, watching right now, and they're still wondering, what is SEO?
I'll start with the most basic translation. SEO stands for search engine optimization. Google is the market leader. They own 90+% of the market share. Most people aren't using Bing or like DuckDuckGo, but basically DuckDuckGo is a search engine that came out maybe 10 years ago with privacy as their number one value proposition. They've had some commercials recently, but yeah, basically that's their MO, is that they're not going to give away your data as much as Google, for example. SEO is really the art of optimizing your website in a way that is friendly to search engines while simultaneously, and not everyone does this, but simultaneously friendly to your target audience. Because search engines are robots, and robots only can comprehend but so much, even though it's getting greater and greater every day. Just because you show up number one or number two on Google doesn't mean that the language you use is enticing enough for me to want to click on that search result. It's a little bit of art, a little bit of science, in that there is a scientific methodology to get you to show up. But if the words that you use are not speaking to me as your target customer, well, I'm going to the other 9 options that I have on page 1 of Google.
I've known you for a little while now, and you talk about how important SEO is or should be for people or business owners or entrepreneurs when it comes to their marketing strategy. Why is that?
There are several reasons. So firstly, SEO is a long-term strategy. So I refer to it as compound interest, whereas something like Google ads or Facebook ads, a lot of people, it's a quick shot to the arm where you're showing up that next day front and center in front of people, but the cost per click may vary depending on the industry. I've seen in Google, in the legal sphere, sometimes one click on your advertisement is $50. That's a lot of money if you're racking up even 100 clicks a month. It is more of a long-term strategy that's less pay to play than paid ads, number one. Number two, your website, as these platforms, whether it be Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, you can build a following on those websites, but they own that data. When somebody goes to your Instagram account or your YouTube account, Facebook owns all of that data, or Google owns all of that data. When they come to your website, and organic search is the number one source of traffic in the world for people coming to websites. I think organic might be something like 60% of the market share in terms of traffic. When they come to your site, they give you their information, whether it be an email address, name, etc. You now own that data. If your Facebook page gets taken down or your Instagram account gets taken down, that might be one source that is cut off. But if I'm leveraging my website in the way that I can, I have an email list. I have all of these different assets where I own that data. I know who my audience is, and I can communicate with them without needing a Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. They know where to find me, and I can now communicate with them via several different modes.
How does that translate into money?
This is more of the first party data side of things. But if you are reaching your target audience, you understand who they are, you put a message in front of them when they go looking, because that's the other thing is SEO is people who are searching for an answer, whether it be an answer in the form of a product, an answer in the form of a service, an answer in the form of just information. People are searching with the intent to find an answer to their question or a solution to their problem. You, as the business owner, entrepreneur, e-commerce website, you are tasked with presenting them that solution or answer to their problem. And if and when done correctly, it gets that ball rolling downhill and you're just picking up more momentum to the point where you can then use that information and data to power up your advertisements, to build custom audiences based on the people that you know are the right individuals, and then building lookalike audiences in Facebook and Instagram and things like that to then find more of those individuals to come learn about your business.
Got it. And so for anyone who is thinking, okay, I can see the value in SEO, but I still have no idea how to implement that, what are some resources that we should know about when it comes to having an SEO strategy?
Sure. So there are several different free SEO tools. In fact, I have a blog post about some of the best free SEO tools on my website, which I can provide you with the URL. But tools like Ahrefs, SEMrush, there is a website called Answer the Public. If you have an idea of who your target audience is, in the SEO world, we call it keyword research. It's really understanding what are the keywords and what are the topics that your target audience is searching to get that answer to their question. And sometimes it may be informational in nature, sometimes it may be transactional in nature. And then once you fundamentally understand what they're looking for and what the intent of that search is, you can start to develop content that answers those questions. And that's where Google's ultimate goal is to deliver to their user base the best possible experience for their search. So you as the business owner would say, okay, what are my clients looking for? What is my target audience looking for? What are the questions they have? I'll write a blog post or create a landing page that answers those questions, or provides the solution to those problems. And then it doesn't happen overnight, but Google then should reward you if you are providing quality or value that they deem valuable to your target audience, in a nutshell.
And Google will reward you by pushing your page or website up.
Correct. Yep. Google will reward you by pushing your page to the top of the search results. And the algorithm is sophisticated enough to also understand the click-through rate mechanisms to say, if your website is ranking number one for a specific term, the expected number of clicks or the expected percentage of clicks is X. If more people are clicking on search results below that, to Google, it indicates that they must be providing something that's more valuable than what's above it. And that's why I say it's a little bit art, a little bit science, because you have to convince people that what you're providing is worthy of a click. And Google then rewards those websites by putting them in more prominent positions.
So you're an SEO expert. You help businesses not only develop, but also implement SEO strategies, right?
Mm-hmm.
For entrepreneurs, business owners, or even people who have a blog who are listening that might not have the budget to hire an expert like you. What are 3, maybe 5 things that they can do today to start leveraging SEO to increase not only the leads, first step would be the leads to their website, but ultimately revenue?
Number 1 would be understand your audience and the things that they are searching. Like I said, go to something like Answer the Public. There will be keywords with 2 words and keywords with 6 words that you can get as basic or as detailed as possible in understanding how people are searching for within your industry. Number 2 would be on-page optimization. So optimizing the title tags and the meta descriptions on your website. And usually those are within the page in your content management system. A lot of people use Yoast. It'll say SEO title, SEO description. Usually, I would say a lot of people do not realize how important those 2 things are, because not only do they help Google understand what that page is about, they're shown to the end user when that user executes a search. If you have nothing there, Google just automatically pulls from within the content what it deems relevant, which is not allowing you to get your message out. 3, I would say, just do a brief analysis of your competitive landscape to understand who is consistently at the top of the search results. A lot of times, and I tell my team this all the time, while tools are great, the best tool is Google. I will sit and Google different iterations of things for 10 minutes to try to understand, what does Google deem a synonym? What does Google deem some sort of related term? There could be 2 terms within your industry that you think are synonyms, and Google is treating them as 2 completely separate things that you may want 2 completely separate pages for. Never be afraid to Google, to just straight up go in and use Google itself. And then my last piece of advice would synergize with all of them, especially the keyword research point, is there's almost never such thing as too much content, but you want it to be the right content. I see a lot of people treat their blogs like journals, not so much anymore. Oftentimes companies will have news updates or hey, we did this thing, which is great if somebody already knows who you are. But if you're an entrepreneur and you don't have money to throw at things like a Fortune 500 business, you've got to understand, what do these people care about, and produce more and more content that dovetails with what they actually care about versus what you care about, if that makes sense. I'm always trying to be introspective in that nobody cares what I like. They care what they like. And how do I deliver more of what the greater they likes?
So at what point does someone, or should someone, consider coming to an expert like you?
Yeah, I would say if you don't have the time, the easiest way to not spend your time banging your head against the wall trying to understand a lot of these nebulous concepts, coming to an expert is definitely the way to go. And how we situate things, I like to help my clients understand as much as possible about SEO or the processes that aren't too in the weeds so they can understand, okay, this is why we're doing things and this is why I should care about X, Y, or Z. But I've also seen people who have the time to sit down and understand and figure out the ins and outs of SEO, that they're able to do it, but you do need the time.
Well, thank you for sharing all this valuable information. I always end the interview with a round of rapid fire questions, and you can just tell me the first thing that comes to mind. What's a book that changed your perspective on life?
I don't remember the actual name of the book, which is going to not lend credibility to what I'm saying, but the author is Eckhart Tolle. There was a lot of mindfulness. I might have been like 23 or 24, and I was battling some mental health issues and had never battled mental health issues before. So I had no idea what was happening to me and why I felt the way that I felt. And my mom suggested that I read that book, and it just helped me reframe a lot of how I thought and not necessarily lean into the negative sides of what my mental illness was telling me, and trying to really evaluate areas where maybe I was like self-sabotaging and things like that, to just have a much healthier outlook on life going forward.
Thank you for your transparency. What's the name of the book?
The Power of Now.
The Power of Now.
Eckhart Tolle.
What's one life lesson you learned the hard way?
You're not as smart as you think you are. Learned it the hard way by swearing I could drive home while tired, power through, sleep at the wheel, wake up with the passenger side window in the seat. Luckily, it wasn't learned the super hard way. I came out unscathed, but hard enough. And ironically, that was the day that I signed the paperwork for my first job. Not the greatest way to start off quote unquote adult life, but never again.
What's one thing about money you wish you could tell your younger self?
Just be smarter with it. I did a lot of online gambling back in the day when poker was huge, before there was a bill signed where you couldn't use credit cards to gamble online. So that whole credit card story was from thinking I could somehow be in the World Series of Poker, and yeah, just making really stupid financial decisions. It's never a bad time to ask for help as far as like money goes, because how I even got myself into the credit card debt, how I got a credit card at all, was I went over my minutes on my cell phone and was afraid to ask my parents for $100 extra to help me out, because I just assumed the answer would be no. So instead of asking them, I got a credit card, which led me down a path of a little bit of self-destruction.
What's the best investment in yourself you've made so far?
My MBA, as weird as it sounds to advocate for going back to school, because I'm all about the fact that I could have learned any of what I did in my MBA on the internet. While it is the best investment in myself, it is solely because I was able to double my salary as soon as I got those 3 letters after my name.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, the content of the school could be learned anywhere, but the clout it brings you from a salary standpoint allowed me to make a lot more money and further my aspirations from the BCC side of things.
Did you get it while you had your side hustle?
The tail end. Yeah, the tail end was while I had my side hustle. It was like at the very beginning.
Fill in the blank in 3 words or less. Money to me is
freedom.
What do you want your legacy to be?
Made people smile and was a caring individual from a person-to-person standpoint.
Cory, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and helping us understand SEO just to a certain extent.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was great. Hopefully I shed some light on why SEO is important, but yeah, this was awesome.
If the dreamers want to find out more about you, where can they find you?
You can go to our website at bccinteractive.com. You can find me on Twitter at C Young Marketing, or you can find me on Instagram at Cory Does Marketing. That's CORY.
If you like this episode and want to find out more about how you can use SEO to increase revenue and generate actually passive income from your business, stay tuned for this next episode with Janice Torres Rodriguez from Yo Quiero Dinero. She has been able to use SEO for her blog and hasn't even posted made a new post on her blog in over a year and makes 6 figures in passive income just because she optimized her website for SEO.